Dennis's UFO encounter brings a unique perspective to us, as the mysterious object was confirmed by multiple witnesses, all who were professional pilots. Here is his testimony, and it is true.
Dennis, so you're a certified pilot?
I was.
Okay.
I'm retired. I let my medical slip, but I was a professional pilot for about 40 years.
40 years.
And I flew 15, 20 years after that.
And you had an experience while you were flying. Tell me about that.
I did. It was in the early stages of my commercial aviation experience. I was flying from Lima, Peru to Mexico City.
Okay.
And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, about an hour and a half after takeoff. And
Towards Mexico City?
Towards Mexico, from Lima to Mexico. We were at 31,000 feet, and the sky was clear of cloud. We were above cloud, about a quarter moon. And as I was leaving the first officer, I was the second officer. He went back there for crew rest. I was sitting in the front of the co-pilot seat, and the captain hit my left arm and said, "What do we have here, Dennis?" And I looked up, and I saw a very bright light about 40 degrees off our left of our nose, about 10 degrees above the horizon. And very quickly we could discern that it was coming towards us, directly towards us. And this one light turned into two lights, as an automobile does as it comes closer to you. And very quickly it turned into beams of light. And there was a beam that was pointed forward relative to our direction, and pointed backwards, the other one, so fore and aft. And they were angled up above the horizon, about 30 degrees, and equal in intensity and length and size. As it stopped beside us, as it came in directly towards us, didn't drift on our windscreen at all, so it was coming directly at us at a very fast speed.
Very high rate. How fast were you going? 500
Well,
miles
we measure in percentage of speed of sound, and we were doing 8.3, I think 8.2,
okay.
0.82, and which is about 500 miles an hour, yeah.
Okay.
And then basically these beams of light angled down about 30 degrees. The aft one increased in size and length and intensity, and the forward beam shrank to about a third of its size.
Okay.
And then as it stopped, very, very beautifully and coordinatedly, these beams of light angled towards almost parallel to the horizon, just maybe 1 or 2 degrees down. And they became equal in size and intensity. The beams were a wispish bluish gray, and they were like cylinders of light, big beams of cylinders light. And as we were both traveling forward, they were formating on us. As we were both traveling forward, there were sparks originating in the front beam as we were traveling along at various points, and then shooting rapidly down the beam. So we hypothesized that it was probably an electric type propulsion system, and this was the exhaust or the photon beams that were going out. I mean, no guessing on that, obviously.
Conjecture.
Conjecture, yeah.
But based on, you know...
Based on what I've seen in the air, as I say, I've flown professionally for 40 years. There's a lot of electrical charges that build up on an aircraft as it flies through opposite charges, and things like St. Elmo's Flyer shows up on the windscreen. And actually, I've seen a beam of electrons out the front of our aircraft, like a narwhal thing. So about a foot, 2 feet in diameter, and probably 50 feet out. So it looked like this, it looked like electrons to me. So these lights it filled the windscreen by about 27 inches. I reached out my arm and the beams of light were equal to my thumb, to my thing, about 9 inches, my little finger, and then the other one was the same. The distance between the two lights was about the same length as the lights, these propulsion lights. In between these...
Were the lights actually craft, or was this...
Well, just a minute. All I could see is light, of these two beams of light. Between the lights, there were a row of windows, maybe 18, 20 windows that were rectangular. They weren't round. They were fairly large, and they descended in the center, so it was like a curve in the center. Then there was a distance between the forward window light and the beginning of the beam of light. There was another light just right on top of that. Impossible to tell the size or because we didn't know the distance. But the perception we got was that it was very close and probably about the same size as us as it drifted by the left wing.
So it was pacing with you?
It was formation flying, yeah.
Okay.
And for quite a while, it's interesting. All the time I give here is we afterwards discussed and we wrote down how long we thought, because nobody had a stopwatch, the various phases of this sighting took place. So for an example, the time we first saw it to the time it was formating on us, we guessed at about 5 seconds. That's all. Now we can see other aircraft that have landing lights on at about 50 miles, if they have landing lights on up at that altitude. This was brighter than that, and so I assume that it was further than that. But say 50 miles in 5 seconds, well, you're looking at 36,000 miles an hour.
That's impossible. Let me just ask you something. You are, and because you're a pilot, you are a trained observer. Is that a fair statement?
It is. I was in the military. I was a fighter pilot in the military. Interceptor, flew all the jets we had. And so I have had lots of experience intercepting and fighting and playing with other aircraft in the air. So I'm fairly things. And this was with only 18 months after my military career.
And how long did the craft pace
We figured about 7 minutes.
7 minutes. And then how did it leave the scene?
The beams of light angled down about 30 degrees and increased in intensity, and the thing just shot away.
When you say
up
shot
and away. It just rapidly disappeared. 5 seconds or so, and it was gone.
Which is impossible. We don't have anything like that today.
Oh no! It was. It defied the centrifugal force if it was material. So it looked like material from us because the quarter moon that we had was behind us on our right, and we could see light, the moon beam lights reflecting off the fuselage. But we couldn't discern the shape or the edges of it.